Ian the Future Garry, or his new name, Ian Machado Garry. I've been wanting to make this video for quite a while and speak about the future prospect. He's coming up to have his third fight of 2023 in August, UFC 292 in Boston against Geoff Neal. Wow, massive step up first of all. I think we all thought he would be fighting Neil Magny, but now he's going and fighting number 8 in the world. I think he's number 13 at the moment, which is just, it's so strange to watch because I've been watching him since he was on Cage Warriors, and it's the same sort of thing with people like, you know, McGregor, O'Malley, all these type of people. They kind of just come up and you kind of follow their career, and then you get a bit like, wow, they're at the top now. Ian Garry has a very long way to go, but this video was kind of wanting to speak about his next fight. I want to speak about his mentality and how it's very refreshing, and also it's his own little niche he's developed in the MMA world right now. And I also want to talk about how kind of times are changing in terms of training and fighting out of your own country, etc. Because realistically that doesn't matter anymore, and we can't even wear flags in the UFC anymore. I love how I just said we can't even wear flags in the UFC anymore, as if I'm a UFC fighter. One day I will be, promise you one day I will be, but I more said it in the standpoint of being a fan, etc., you know, that type of thing. But let's get right into it. I've got so much to speak about regarding the prospect, the future, Ian Machado Garry. I love Ian Garry. Ian Garry. Oh, I'm Ian Garry. How are you? Ian Garry. The man is all about growth. Genuinely, when I sit and I listen to Ian Garry talk, you know, when I first started hearing him speak, I was like, oh yeah, okay, buddy, you're all about growth and getting better and better. But then when he started putting it into practice, I was like, what the fuck, Ian Garry? You know, after he had his kid and he came back and he fought Songhit Chenan, whatever the fuck his name is, he got dropped in the first, he came back, won the second, and demolished him in the third round. And it's just like, there's a highlight, I'll put it on screen now, of the finish, and he bobs his head back, avoids that left hook without getting dropped again, and then punishes him for it. And it's just little things like that really make you think, okay, he is the real deal. He's a very good striker, a world-class striker almost. To be in the UFC, and his debut, he looked like he had a bit of nerves, he looked like he had this, he looked like he had that. But time and time again, in every single interview, he keeps saying, I'm out here to grow, I'm going to grow after this fight. I'm going to go to Brazil with Layla. This is his wife, Layla. I'm going to Brazil with Layla. I'm going to just do jiu-jitsu and get so good at jiu-jitsu. Then he's going to go train with Izzy and Volk and stuff in New Zealand. And it's just, McGregor is SBG. He trains with other people, obviously, but he's affiliated to SBG. He trains out of SBG, in camp and out of camp. Ian Garry trains out of, obviously, he trains in Florida with Gilbert Burns, all of this type of people, under Henry Hooft. And it's just, that in my opinion is one of the best MMA teams in the world if you're looking to fight at welterweight or middleweight. Maybe not so much middleweight, but definitely welterweight, because who do they have? It's Gilbert Burns, Vicente Luque, Shavkat Rakhmonov, 3 people in the top 10 of the welterweight division straight away, training alongside Ian Garry. And I also think that's a reason he took the Geoff Neal fight, because Shavkat has just come off of a very competitive fight against Neal, and obviously Ian Garry probably is sitting back and he probably knows, I don't do too badly against Shavkat in the gym, so when I come out for this fight, I'm going to be very well prepared, very confident, but he knows it's a tough task ahead. And he also has a very different style to Shavkat. Shavkat will kind of have his hands a bit higher and kind of play with you a little bit, and then look for like the ground and pound, the takedown, just look to finish the fight. Ian will look to keep it standing and throw some tapes and some jabs, because he said it himself, his jab, he could win any fight with just his jab. You know, he's very competent with the jab. But I also feel like we might see a wee bit of grappling from Ian Garry, a bit of clinch work. He's a taller, kind of not as stocky as Geoff, but he's tall. You know, he's a big man. He can kind of overpower you a wee bit. But back to his approach when it comes to the game and comes to visiting gyms, and I feel like that approach has been lost in MMA, or maybe it's not even been discovered yet. You know, we've got this whole thing right now between Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis, and it's driving me nuts, because on one hand, Adesanya, you can't say that you're fighting out of Africa. You're not fighting out of Africa. You're an African fighter that fights out of New Zealand. You know what I mean? Like, how is that so hard to understand? Dricus du Plessis is South African, and he fights out of South Africa because he trains and resides in South Africa. There's nothing about skin colour. There's nothing about ethnicity or anything. It's just the truth. Izzy, you are black. You are African. But you train and live in New Zealand, brother. You don't fight out of Africa. You fight for Africa. You fight as an African. You don't fight out of Africa. Like, not trying to get too sidetracked, but the only reason Israel Adesanya took that so much to heart and it's become such a big thing is because he doesn't truly feel he's a proper African. I think he was hurt by it because he maybe isn't as familiar with those roots, you know, as a young guy going to New Zealand, and he has the New Zealand accent, and, you know, in the past he's called himself Chinese when he was fighting out of China. It seems like he's fought all over the world, and he feels like he's trained all over the world except Africa. So, like, fuck off. Like, you know, you can't be fighting out of Africa. And I feel like Ian Garry, he moved to Florida, and I was very curious because he was like 4 or 5-0 in Cage Warriors, maybe 8-0, something like this, 7-0. And then I think it was 7-0, and he moved to Florida, and I was very curious, how have you managed to afford that, you know, to go out there and live there? And it was Layla. I've got no idea how he met Layla, but Layla financially supported him to chase his dreams, and now he's given back to her, which I thought was lovely. And now they have a kid together. He's renamed himself Machado, so they all share the same last name. A very lovely story. So when it comes to his mentality of wanting to train with Izzy and Volk in New Zealand and in Australia, and then he was in Brazil not long ago doing jiu-jitsu at the highest level people. It's just out of camp, learning and growing, and just developing a craft and building his record and just being this flawless mixed martial artist that, you know, isn't the biggest personality or isn't the biggest star, but the fact that people relate him to McGregor, he doesn't quite have the McGregor personality, but he uses the McGregor comparisons to build a platform, and he's building a brand, the future. That's what he's building. He's got the future merchandise. He's got the coffee brand. He's got the clothing. You know, it's just, he's got all these new avenues now. He's got his hands in different pots. So it's very nice to see that he's actually building a little something outside of the octagon as well. I want to get your guys' opinions on that, to be honest. Before we go into the prediction for the Geoff Neal fight, I want to get your predictions on your opinions on training at different gyms and training out of countries and training all around the world, because I love it. Personally, I'm going to tell you about my story. I'm from Aberdeen in Scotland, right? Quality of fighting and MMA here is so low. The IQ of it is so low. The passion is so low. The ambition for a big life, you know, you'd be lucky to get out of Aberdeen when you're from Aberdeen, you know. It's not a bad place to live, but obviously I'd love to go train in Thailand and Canada and America, and I will one day. And I'm never going to fight out of Aberdeen because you don't get the same quality of training. I'm not benefiting myself. I will fight and wear the Scottish and Irish colours representing where I'm from, but I'm not fighting out of those countries because that doesn't benefit me. I'm representing them, but I'm never going to be anything in MMA fighting out of Aberdeen or fighting out of Ireland, you know. And it's, when I look at John Kavanagh's approach, I think he's a very good philosopher of the game, and he's a very intelligent individual, and he's got really good fighters, solid average fighters. But I do think Conor McGregor was a unicorn, and I think Conor McGregor would be much... I have a few opinions. I think Conor McGregor wouldn't fit into an American gym. So if Conor McGregor, a year into his UFC career, went to America to train, he wouldn't have fit it in. You know, you need that Irish, you need that crack around you, and you need to be able to talk your shit and people understand you and build you up in that tough cunt mentality that the Irish have. He wouldn't have fit in somewhere with like training alongside Usman, or it just wouldn't have worked. So I think him being in that environment helped him get exactly what he needed mentally and physically to be where he needed to be. However, the performances would have remained the same. I think he was a unicorn when he was on his come up, and he was just this man that could find your chin, and he had this great personality, and I feel like that's never going to be replicated in a million years. You know, the next one will be in 20 years, I'd say. However, Ian Garry versus Geoff Neal, what a fight, first of all. It's a really fun little fight. It's not necessarily a massive high-profile fight. It's going a bit under the radar. However, it's a phenomenal fight in Boston. The amount of Irish that are in Boston is unbelievable. My dad's cousins all live in Boston, all Irish, proud Irish. Mental. It's going to be a wild night. O'Malley headlining it. A name like O'Malley in Boston, you don't need to know O'Malley's American, and you'd be turning up thinking he's Irish. You know, that's just the passion Irish people have for, oh, O'Malley, yeah, I know him, even though you don't. I think Ian Garry knocks him out in one round. I shouldn't say that because that's most likely not what's going to happen. However, I can see it happening. I think Ian Garry goes out there, stands in front of him, is very patient, doesn't throw much, bank straight right hand, and he's on the ground. You mean Neil took a lot of damage in his last fight against Shavkat. That was a war. Ian Garry's going to take a few shots and he's going to not really throw much. Dink. And that'll be all she wrote. I think he's genuinely going to put his lights out in about 2 minutes. I think, and if not, I feel like he's going to work the kick, and I feel like Neil's going to try get him against the cage. Neil's going to land power shots, and I do worry about his chin. I must say I do worry about Ian Garry's chin. He's got a small head for the welterweight division, a very he's a big guy on the bottom, but his head's a wee bit little. So I'm hoping he gets it done. I think he will get it done, and I think he'll get it done in about 2 minutes of the first round. Let me know what you think. I want to get all your thoughts and opinions on Ian Garry's next fight, and I love his philosophy. You know, I love his philosophy of improvement and growth and being happy and just building records, building highlights, and it's a really great mentality. It's very refreshing for MMA because he's went down his own little route with it. He's not being anybody he's not, and it's so refreshing, you know. And I feel like after this fight, he'll be top 10 in the world. Then you're getting sticky, and he's very young. And you know, as Dana White said, the UFC have the roadmap for Irish people. So fantastic. Don't forget to subscribe, everybody. I'm trying to make the content better every single video, upping the quality, upping the editing, upping the graphics. So please subscribe. I'd love to be able to make a bit of money doing this and just upgrade the setup and upgrade everything to do with these videos. And the passion's not money. The passion is fandom, showing you guys what I love and getting your thoughts. You know, it's having a community is what I'm passionate about, and I'd love a community. I'm sorry I sound like this today. I'm quite sick, got a cold, but we'll be back strong with another video tomorrow for you. So thank you very much. See you all very soon, and good night.